Ed's party members gathered with somber expressions, breaking the news that he wouldn't be joining them on the next day's hunt. It wasn't an easy decision, but they believed it was for the best, both for their group's success and for Ed himself. Despite their empathy, they knew they had to make this tough call, as continuing with Ed might spell disaster for them all. Ed, faced with the unsettling news, opted for a peculiar strategy. Sipping his beer leisurely, he feigned ignorance, humorously questioning if the next day was, in fact, his day off. This playful act didn't sit well with his party, and one member, unable to contain their frustration, bluntly informed Ed that he was no longer part of the team starting the next day. Ed, persistent in his charade, played the inebriation card, attributing any impulsive statements to the influence of alcohol. However, the mood shifted when his party member, with a stern expression, affirmed the decision was unanimous and thoroughly considered. Ed, caught off guard, was genuinely shocked by the revelation that the group he considered a family was evicting him from their ranks. The camaraderie he once cherished seemed to be unraveling before his eyes. Ed, stunned by the sudden turn of events, attempted to jog their memories, reminding the party of their shared commitment to vanquish the Demon King. However, the response he received was an eerie silence that hung in the air. In a desperate attempt to make sense of it all, he turned to the hero, half expecting it to be an elaborate prank. The hero, however, remained stoic and serious, confirming that it was no jest. Tomorrow marked the day Ed would cease to be a part of their adventurous fellowship. Despite the severity of the situation, the hero, recognizing Ed's talents, shared that he had been invited to the party with joy. Everyone had happily embraced his presence, and during that brief period, they had all learned valuable lessons from him. This glimmer of acknowledgement sparked a flicker of hope in Ed, making him believe that reconsideration might be on the horizon. However, the hero, though appreciative of Ed's skills, remained resolute in the decision to part ways. The reason became apparent as the hero outlined Ed's recent shortcomings. Apparently, in their recent quests, Ed had been slacking and cutting corners, neglecting the tasks entrusted to him. While the rest of the party dedicated themselves to self-improvement, Ed's antics during their training sessions had become a source of frustration. The dream of becoming the greatest adventurers fueled their daily endeavors, and Ed's recent behavior had become a stumbling block to that collective aspiration. Ed, the guy deemed too incompetent for another adventure by his party, surprisingly took the news with a smile. Despite the disappointment, his party hoped he'd find his spark again. The hero approached Ed to console him, expecting a somber moment, but Ed was grinning ear to ear. Why? Well, his system notified him that he was about to gain a buff, making him practically immortal. Everyone was bewildered by Ed's seemingly insane joy, only to discover that he was actually thanking them for kicking him out. To express his gratitude, Ed pulled a stunt that left his party in awe. He casually opened his spatial storage, revealing a hidden talent none of them knew he had. Inside were parting gifts, an instruction manual for their future expeditions. Turns out, Ed had some serious skills up his sleeve, turning the tables and leaving his former party both shocked and impressed. Who knew the incompetent guy had so much to offer? As the wizard approached Ed, she couldn't help but mention how handy his spatial storage ability would have been earlier. But Ed wasn't in the mood for chit-chat. He had a manual to offer. The party's jaws collectively dropped as they flipped through the pages, realizing it held more knowledge than they could have imagined. Even their top-tier member couldn't boast such a comprehensive guide. Curious, the priestess asked if she could find the elusive magic she'd been seeking in the manual. Ed advised her to focus on the basics, assuring her that she'd pick up the magic in due time. Meanwhile, the tactician marveled at a perfectly drawn map of the city. When he asked how Ed managed it, Ed played coy, citing confidentiality now that he was no longer part of the team. Unexpectedly, the hero stepped forward, bowing to Ed and apologizing for not recognizing his contributions sooner. Ed was taken aback by the gesture, but before he could respond, the priestess joined in, expressing regret for undervaluing his efforts. The tactician, still in awe of Ed's talents, offered his apologies as well. Ed, bewildered, insisted everyone lift their heads and assured them everything was fine. The wizard even declared they were rescinding their decision. With a childlike plea, the hero asked Ed to rejoin the party. However, Ed, wearing a goofy expression, apologized and declined, leaving everyone in shock. The hero, feeling embarrassed, couldn't face Ed, but Ed comforted them, telling them not to worry. Before making his exit, Ed expressed anticipation for the party's success against the Demon King. As he ran off without a farewell, the party was left dumbfounded. Little did they know, Ed was ecstatic, counting down the seconds until the transmigration skill activated. Ed found a safe spot just in time as the skill transported him to a mysterious place. Nostalgia hit him. It had been a while since he returned from this enigmatic realm. Lying back in his chair, Ed congratulated himself on making it after a year. Suddenly, his expression turned serious. Staring at a crystal ball, he exclaimed, "Take me home." Ed gave a huge sigh because a certain entity wouldn't give him a reply as he expected. You see, back when our hero was still a mercenary, he lived a peaceful and ordinary life. But then he was suddenly transported to this mysterious place. The moment he arrived, he saw a mysterious pure white book lying on the table. The book was blank from start to finish. Other than what's on the table, he noticed that there was a door in front of him. He was too confused about what was going on. He tried to ask God for help, but God didn't say anything. Due to his curiosity and boredom, he decided to read and open the book despite having shitty content. The book instructed him to go through the door to another world and get recognized as a companion by the hero. Additionally, he should work with the hero for more than half a year and gain a certain level first. Once he got exiled, the conditions would finally meet. Ed has a dead look on his face because once he completes the task he will be transported back to this boring place. Ed kept on reading the book, until the point that the book told him that once the door opened it could never open again, but instead, there would be another door leading to the next world. Ed thinks that everything was pointless because no matter how much he reads it, the content doesn't make any sense. But times passed by, and Ed managed to acquire an enormous number of doors. Despite he was still pissed because, after years of efforts, God still hasn't given him a reply. Tired from waiting for a reply, he looked at his reflection. And appreciated the fact that he doesn't get old in the mysterious place. Because the concept of time was not existing inside the place. No matter what he does to his body, like trying to be muscular or trying to be obese. All of those would reset once he comes back to the mysterious place. In fact, Ed has already lived for 100 years, but his body and spirit remain in his 20s. In other words, he is a man who lived a long life that no one would remember him, not even his friends or his mom. Thinking of that gave him a sense of loneliness and depression. Because he did not wish to become immortal, he asked God again to take him home because for him he had already done enough. The crystal ball then gave a bright spark of light. But it's nothing new for him because every time he got expelled from another world, the crystal ball would give him a mysterious power. Examples of those powers are Wanderer's Treasury, also known as spatial storage. Travel footprints, an automatic recorder of the place he went to. Glasses of 7 lights, a talent that lies dormant in humans. Half-fledged counterfeiter, an ability to replicate the things that the user saw. Thanks to those powers, he managed to make it through each world he warped in. Since the mysterious ball was giving free abilities, it would be wrong for him not to happily accept each power. He extended his arm ready to acquire his new ability. The crystal ball gave him an ability that he could only use for a single time. So, he decided to only use it until the last minute. But then his happy face suddenly disappeared when he saw something was off. He realized that another door had opened again, but this time it was different. The energy that he was feeling was coming from door 0, so he immediately ran toward that door. He was breathing heavily when he finally reached door 0. He was too thrilled to see that the door from his original world had opened once again. Without any hesitation, he grabbed the doorknob ready to face whatever was next. Because even though 100 years had already passed, the fact that he could finally go back makes him happy. But then reality kicked in, and he realized that none of his loved ones existed anymore. So, he blamed God for it. But then a book appeared right behind him. It was written in the book that the digits under the number plates represent the time that has passed since he left the world. He was thrilled when he saw that the number of years was 0. Therefore, everything was still the same. But then another book popped up. Inside the book was a golden key. The key can open the door he already visited but can only be used once. After that, the key would shatter in exchange for a door to reopen. He took his time to choose where to use the key. And he decided to use door 1, the world he struggled with the most. Because that was his debut world on transmigration, that's why it took him so long to meet the hero. Until fate brought him and the hero together. In his time there, he was useless and couldn't help the hero at all. So, he did everything he could to fit in, to the point where they treated him as human luggage. He saw that 10 years had already passed since he left that world. Nonetheless, Ed's decision was clear. He decided to warp in door 1. When he entered the door, he was transported to a grassy field. Although it was already a long time since he entered the world, he still remembers the place very clearly. A monster then ambushed him from behind, but he easily dodged the attack. Ed stood his ground as he faced the vicious monster. In an instant, he cut the monster in half. Ed felt nostalgic as he explored the world he once struggled with. He boasted to himself that he used to be a weak adventurer, but now he was free to do whatever the hell he wanted. He thought of going on a shopping spree first and buying all of the items he used to dream of. But then he remembered his favorite sweet manju that he used to eat all the time. But on the way to the town, he noticed something was weird. He quickly ran to check on what happened to the town. To his surprise, the town he used to love was already a ruin. He couldn't believe what he just witnessed. He tried to deduce what happened, but he couldn't find a conclusion. He kept on exploring the town, but not a single building remained. He was baffled by it because before he left the world, he and his party already defeated the demon lord. But then an old man saw him and asked him where was he heading. The old man felt pity for him. He gave Ed some of the things he scavenged. Ed asked the old man why he was in a bad situation. The old man revealed that it's been 2 years since the town turned into a ruin. It was all because of the Demon King's army that the town got completely wiped out. Our hero's eyes widened. He just couldn't believe the Demon King was still alive. He asked the old man why the Demon King was still alive. The old man just laughed at him because the Demon King's army had been rampaging the world for a long time. With a panicked look on his face, he quickly asked the old man what happened to the hero named Alexis. He was in complete shock when the old man told him that the hero he was searching for had already died 5 years ago fighting the Demon King. The old man gave our hero a taste of reality by telling him that the town was proof that the hero had already died. He asked where could he find the other 2 party members who remained loyal to the hero. The old man stated that he had no idea, other than they died along with the hero. He just sat in the corner ashamed of leaving them behind. The old man left and gave Ed advice, which was to move on. His body won't stop trembling, because those precious people died without him knowing. He couldn't stop but reminisce about the days when he used to spend his life with them. But each time he reminisced about it, he kept on envisioning the rotting body of the party. He uses his Akashi compass to search for the place where the hero died. Because of the compass, he confirmed that the hero had indeed passed away. He asked where could he find the others, but the compass pointed him to the same place. Ed was depressed after receiving such information, that he even thought of building a grave for his fallen comrades. One last time, he asked where could he find Tiana's corpse, one of the party's members. He was shocked when the compass told him that it wasn't applicable. Immediately, he asked where he could find Tiana. The moment the compass gives him the direction, he uses his Hermes dash to go to that place as quickly as possible. He was emotional because finally there was a brim of hope that he could rely on. In an instant, he managed to arrive at the place. He panicked when he realized that he had not brought any souvenirs for Tiana. So, he used his Wanderer treasury to search for something decent that he could give. When he finally reached the front door, something stopped him from doing it. It's not because of the Demon King, but rather because his conscience was preventing him from doing it. Because he was nothing more but a troublemaker who left the hero's party. Still, he took the courage to knock because he didn't come this far just to run away. When he knocked on the door, no one answered, which made him relentless, so he quickly opened the door to check. In front of him was Tiana, a beautiful elf. Tiana was too stunned to move to the point that she thought she was dreaming. Ed couldn't help but feel happy as he saw that Tiana was doing well and she was still the same as the last time he saw her. Tiana couldn't keep her excitement anymore, so she jumped off her bed to hug Ed. Tiana's tears won't stop dropping because she couldn't believe that she would see Ed alive. Tiana stated that she longed for him for years because ever since he left the party, no one had heard of him. So, they just assumed that he already died. Ed felt bad for leaving suddenly, so he apologized for what he had done. For the sake of removing Tiana's worry, our hero told her that he changed his name and went to another country after he left the party. Tiana gave Ed her most precious smile. She was just too glad that Ed was still alive. Later, they decided to prepare the souvenir that Ed brought for her. While Ed was preparing the fruit, Tiana noticed that Ed's clothes were tattered, so she asked for the reason. He replied that it was all because he traveled around the world just to reunite with her. She felt delighted because he gave her the time and effort just to meet her. He was reminded back then he wasn't popular with women. Despite that, Tiana was an exception, because all of Tiana's approach was sincere. Ed can't stop at the interior of Tiana's house. He felt gloomy when he realized that there were 4 chairs perfect for each member of the party. He decided to look at Tiana's storage room. There he saw the mattresses that they were using back then. After a while, Tiana had finished dressing up. Tiana shyly asked Ed if she didn't look weird wearing her equipment. Ed's thinking process has disappeared for a while due to how gorgeous looking Tiana is. She then offered to sew his clothes, which Ed accepted. While sewing, Tiana showed her skepticism about whether the fruit he brought was indeed sweet. But it turns out that it was all just an act because she planned on rizzing Ed, prompting him to feed her. Ed couldn't retain his composure as he fed Tiana while she was sewing his clothes. Tiana put a stupid look on her face and said that the fruit was too sour for consumption. The innocent Ed got baited on her act because the fruit turned out to be sweet. Tiana felt nostalgic because back in the past, she and Ed used to play together just like this. This gave Ed a bad memory, as all their banters were one-sided. Because Tiana was too playful for him to handle. Even though the elf looks younger than our hero, Tiana is over 100 years old. Although he left her for 10 years, she did not age a bit. While Ed was appreciating Tiana's existence, he accidentally blurted out the word "as I expected the woman who exiled him." Tiana heard that, which made her feel disheartened. Ed tried his best to change the topic and assure her that she had nothing against her. The sad Tiana apologized for that. But Ed stated that it was all his fault, so he should be the one that should be apologizing. Tiana added that it was all because of her that the others had died, but Ed was baffled because they were left with no choice, so they just hired a professional instead, but they also left the party after 3 months. Ed was baffled at why even a professional rejected them. She stated that professionals find their jobs boring. You see, Ed's job back then was to provide support for the party by carrying their luggage and doing daily tasks such as doing laundry and cooking. After 3 months, he lost his cool because of his boring task, which made Alexis the hero angry, so he fired the professional on the spot. Tiana felt extremely sad because they only realized Ed's true value when they exiled him. After a while, they met a man with a mask who was willing to work for them. The man said that he could carry their luggage and be happy to do any chores. That's why the whole party gladly accepted the man's offer. Until one day they finally made it through the demon world. They were surrounded by a horde of demons. Nonetheless, they were confident that they could take them because they came prepared, and they had all the equipment they needed to take them down. But while they were fighting the horde, the man ran away with all of the healing potions and magic tools that they prepared. He even used their light teleportation crystal to leave the scene. Ed was in disgust. He couldn't believe that there would be such a person as evil as the masked man. Tiana stated that she prepared a crystal for everyone in case something happened. Ed was shaking due to his anger because looking at the story, the masked man seemed to plan everything out to cause trouble for the party. Tiana continued her story. She stated that because of that they were left with no choice but to fight the horde. They were doing well until a demonic beast came up to them and cornered them. Luckily, they have one teleportation crystal hidden in the heart of Alexis's armor. While she and Gonzo were giving Alexis time to use the crystal for him to escape, Alexis instead cast the item to her, resulting in Alexis's downfall. Ed was too stunned to speak. He wanted to console Tiana, but he was too tense to do that. While Tiana was having a breakdown, Ed promised himself that he would give them vengeance no matter what. Later, Tiana finally calmed down after having a mental breakdown. So, she decided to continue the story. She said that after Alexis had saved her, she was transported to a secret room in the castle of Notlin. As soon as she got transported, the novels bombarded her with questions, asking what happened to the prince. Tiana couldn't look at them in the eye. She was ashamed of herself for not being enough for the party. Her eyes widened when the king approached her and told her to tell him what happened to his son and Gonzo. After the king listened to her story, he asked her to hide herself in the middle of nowhere, and starting today he would announce that the party was wiped out after crossing the demon world. Ed was too stunned to speak because he completely understood the king's intention. He knew that the king wanted to fulfill Alexis's wish by letting Tiana leave peacefully, although Alexis made a huge mistake by not choosing his own life. The king recognized that his son was indeed a gentleman until the end. Because of that, Tiana was unable to participate in the next expeditions to the demon world. Ed looks confused when Tiana says that. Tiana was confused as well, because how come Ed did not hear about the news when the news spread like wildfire across the kingdom? Seeing how awkward Ed was, Tiana decided to just laugh it off. Tiana said that since Alexis got lost, the allied nations sent forces to the demon world 3 times trying to rescue him, but all their expeditions failed. Tiana then realized how Ed had managed to locate her when her whereabouts were secret and not even the king knew where she lived. Ed replied that it was all because he managed to acquire a magical tool that allowed him to search for people. So, he tried to check on what everyone was doing, but neither Alexis nor Gonzo responded. Tiana felt devastated after hearing the news. Ed apologized to her, saying that there was no way that Alexis and Gonzo were able to survive such a huge army. Tiana appreciated Ed for telling her the truth because finally, she had got to face reality. Suddenly, the ground started to shake, so Ed immediately went outside to look. In front of him was a dragon. It had huge wings and sharp teeth capable of chewing anything. Tiana asked him why he headed outside because Tiana was unaware that a lot had changed since she and Ed last met. Tiana asked him to go back inside and let her handle the beast alone. The dragon started breathing fire from his wide mouth. But Tiana easily blocked the attack using a water wall. Tiana whispered that no one was going to die anymore and immediately went straight to face the monster. The moment the monster got closer, Tiana used her Tri-Edge Stream, a powerful water spell that could cut through anything. In an instant, the dragon got beheaded due to how strong the spell was. Ed was so happy. He knew that Tiana had gotten stronger since then, but she exceeded his expectations. Tiana then asked our hero to leave. It was as if she was trying to hide something from him. Of course, he wouldn't do that, so he asked Tiana what happened. She stated that it was all because she wanted to show that she got too enthusiastic. She then went back inside the house to take some rest. While Tiana is having her rest, he thinks about what to do on the dragon's corpse. He decided to put it straight to his Wander's treasure box so it would serve as an emergency meat. When he went back inside the house, he tried to call for Tiana but he wasn't getting any response. Ed couldn't stop feeling anxious, so he decided to barge inside Tiana's room to check, for he was shocked when he saw Tiana lying on the ground looking helpless. When he approached her to check her, he saw black bruises all over her body. Our hero placed her on the bed, asking how she was feeling. She stated she was feeling better thanks to him. She also explained that when they were in the demon world, she started practicing elf's techniques so they could all survive. One of the techniques she learned was the Tri-Edge Stream. It's a powerful magic that could be activated in exchange for the user's lifespan. Ed shouted at her for being too impulsive, because she just shortened her lifespan for a lesser dragon. Tia replied it was all because she thought Ed might die if she didn't do that. Ed calmed down when he realized that Tia's intention was just to save him all along. But he felt sad because he felt like he was just being a burden for her. It was as if he was an ill omen. Tiana consoled him by saying that he shouldn't be sad because she already lived her life to the fullest thanks to everyone. Suddenly, Ed was able to sense that something was off. So, Tiana asked him to leave immediately as she didn't want to lose someone precious again. But Ed refused. He stated that although his appearance hadn't changed at all, he's been working hard ever since he split up with them. Thanks to that he gained a lot of experience. With a serious look on his face, he told Tiana to stop being a worrywart, because he's strong now. That's why this time around she should let him protect her. Ed promised that he wouldn't leave her alone and then left to face the horde. Tiana tried to stop her, but Ed did not listen, so she tried to follow him outside. But the moment he managed to arrive at the front door, our hero had already finished off the horde. Our hero smiled at her because he said he would protect her. Tiana couldn't believe that the man who used to be just a human luggage was now a powerful adventurer. Ed stated that he started training ever since he got expelled from the party. Recognizing how powerful Ed was, Tiana asked him if he could help her go to the border of the demon world. Ed gave her a cheesy reply. He told her that she should leave everything to him, because even if it's the end of the world, he will take her with him. Ed tied her up in a chair and gave her a piggyback ride. In just one night, They arrived at the place where Alexis used the transfer crystal Titania. Tiana gently touches a stone, which seems to be serving as a tomb for Alexis and Gonzo. She continued saying that Ed had gotten stronger since he left the party, and in just a single night he managed to take her to the demon world. She was so happy because Ed, who was powerless, turned out to become a man capable of protecting someone. A brimmer of hope started shining in Tiana's eye because thanks to Ed the glimpse of defeating the Demon King might be still feasible. Tiana rested on our hero's shoulder and thanked him for fulfilling her wish to go back to the demon world. Sadly, she couldn't fulfill Ed's wish. When Ed held her hand, that's when he realized that Tiana was getting weaker and was about to die. So, Ed told her that his wish was to go back home someday. Tiana smiled and told him that she wished to see Ed's house too. Ed tried his best to keep on smiling as he told her about his home. Before he even finished his story, Tiana had already died with a smile beside him. Tears started dropping from our hero's eyes. He was too sad to accept the fact that everyone at the party had already perished. He clenched his fist very hard. He told God that now he knew why God gave the one-time use power to him. So, without any hesitation, he activated the skill, called the one-time claim skill. Our hero was transported back to the mysterious place. But this time he was unaware of the place. It was as if he had forgotten everything. It turns out that he went back in time, where he was first transported back to the mysterious place. But when he touched the magic crystal, memories started coming back to him. After regaining back his memories, he promised himself that this time he would do it properly. He would do his very best for it to finally be a happy ending. With that, he entered the first door to begin the second lap. We first get to see a glimpse of Alexis, who was searching for a party member that would serve as their human luggage. Our hero took the chance to approach him. He told him that he was the perfect man for the job. Unlike the first time when he begged the hero to let him work as a luggage carrier, this time he did it in the coolest and most confident manner. Alexis was skeptical of him. So, Ed proposed a bet that if he could defeat him without the plate falling to his hand, then he should accept him to the party. This triggered Alexis and he slammed the table with confidence, accepting our hero's wager. Ed parried all of Alexis's attacks and decided to take it seriously. They went to the roof to avoid innocent people from getting dragged into their duel. Ed struggles against Alexis, but he already anticipates the fact that Alexis has crazy skills. Ed was caught off guard, resulting in the meat on the plate falling. While Ed is busy, Alexis uses his moonlight sword skill to finally seal the deal. But our hero managed to parry the attack before something worse happened. The villagers were impressed at Ed's skill because it was the first time that someone had managed to match the hero's strength. The muscular Gonzo approached our hero from behind and complimented him for being able to face Alexis's head-to-head. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice, a voice that he knew he just heard, yet it felt like it's already been a long time since he heard it. He turned around and saw the same beautiful elf named Tiana. She asked him if he was okay, but he was unable to answer him. Teardrops suddenly fell from our hero's eyes. He was just too happy to see her again. Tiana on the other end doesn't know what to do. She thinks that she just said something horrible. Ed brushed it off and said that he was just too happy for the hero's party to ask for his name, that's why he started crying from joy. Alexis then pointed out the meat that fell on the ground and told him that he failed to protect the meat, and therefore, they couldn't accept him. Our hero feels devastated because he just made an amazing entrance, yet he failed to do the task. Tiana asked for Gonzo's opinion on whether they should reconsider the decision not to accept our hero. Gonzo pointed out that although he has good combat ability, what they only need is a trustworthy luggage man. Still, he decided to let Ed to be at the party. Pressured by his party's decision, Alexis accepted our hero. He gave him a gold coin and commanded him to buy all the necessary goods and bring them to him. And since our hero was being boastful that he was the best luggage man in the world, Alexis wanted him to prove it. Ed was shocked to see that he gave him a gold coin because, on his first task, he only received 10 silver coins. That made him think that if the hero trusted him more this time compared to the previous timeline. Later, our hero arrived at the marketplace along with Tiana. Tiana noticed that Ed had started calling her by honorific, so she told him that she could call her Tia instead. While walking around the marketplace, Ed asked her why she decided to come along with him. The gorgeous elf told him that it was because she was curious about what would Ed do with the money. Everyone was glaring at our hero. They were skeptical of him on whether he was a person worthy of going to the hero's party. Ed then asked Tiana if she wouldn't be careless of her to follow a man she just met. Tiana replied that although she looked vulnerable, she was quite strong too. And besides, she didn't need to feel worried because she knew Ed was a good person. Ed noticed that Tia was being way too friendly compared to the first time he met her, which made him think that perhaps she also has a memory of the past. Meanwhile, with Alexis and Gonzo, Gonzo asked if it was a good idea to let Tia accompany him. Alexis told him that Tia wished to follow him and he thought that Ed was not a threat. And besides, even if he told her not to come, Tiana wouldn't listen to them. After finishing their business, Alexis stood up and told Gonzo to prepare, because something was bothering him. Now back to our hero and Tiana. Ed asked why Tiana was so comfortable with him. She stated she wasn't sure herself. In addition, she told him that as an elf she already lived for more than 100 years, and during that time she had experienced and forgotten a lot of things. Nonetheless, there were some things that she just didn't want to forget. She told him that elves carve their memories into their souls. Though it may not be particularly strong, the memory would still linger seared into their very essence even through death and rebirth. And earlier when Tiana saw Ed's face she felt something. That made Ed think that what was she experiencing was similar to déjà vu, but still it wouldn't make sense even though she was an elf. Ed bluntly asked her if she truly believed that story. Tiana shyly claimed that she couldn't help but feel that they already met a long time ago. Ed was delighted by what he heard. He told her that if that was the case then there was no need for him to feel reserved towards her. Ed pondered on whether the concept of the soul has any truth in it. He contemplated whether it would come when you got reincarnated. Nonetheless, even though he has no way of knowing, one thing is for sure, that he already experienced the future. He told himself that he was an existence that brings his memories and abilities, so somewhere in another world, the memories engraved into people's souls need to be awakened. But the real question was how he could improve it. Tiana and Ed were dumbfounded when they saw a holy-looking roof. It was the roof that was damaged when Alexis used his moonlight skill when he dueled with Ed. It turns out that Alexis was the one who fixed the roof and he decided to make it as peculiar as possible. Tiana told Alexis how amazing Ed was. She told him that he was the perfect luggage man. Alexis and Gonzo were shocked when a pile of rations suddenly popped up. Ed was so proud of himself that he boastfully told them that he decided to buy a bunch of rations that could be preserved for at least 10 months. Gonzo couldn't believe that our hero had managed to bring those enormous amounts of ration with him. So, he asked him how he managed to fit those rations. Ed stated that he acquired a magic tool in his last expedition. Though for some reason the only person that could use the magic tool was him. Our hero lied. The truth is he used his spatial dimension skill for the job. Out of curiosity, Alexis asked how much he fit in the magic item. Ed replied that it was about 2 or 3 warehouses. The next item that Ed bought was a magical tool that could create water. Unfortunately, they wouldn't need the tool. You see, Tiana's magic was enough to provide them with the water they needed. But Ed rebutted. He told them that although Tiana was capable of making water by herself, they would still need the item in case something happened to Tiana. Alexis was impressed with Ed's thinking skills, so he acknowledged to him that he was deserving of being with them. With that, Alexis fulfilled his promise and accepted Ed at their party. Gonzo was so happy for our hero, but he advised him to buy an adamantine next time for muscle training. Alexis then noticed that Ed bought a cheap sword with the money he gave. Still, he was satisfied with Ed's decision because he thought that he would waste their money by buying an expensive sword. He then asked our hero for the reason why he bought the sword. Ed told him that it was a disposable sword that could help him to get to the next town. He stated that he built up proficiency in battles and he has been undergoing rigorous training during his travels, so he managed to accumulate some amazing treasures. Alexis wanted to go straight to his business, so he asked him what was he trying to propose. Ed smirked and told him that he just needed to wait and see. Our hero enthusiastically brought everyone into the mine. Tiana couldn't help but feel a thrill at each establishment that they got passed through. Inside a cabin, Alexis cut through the chase. He asked our hero to explain this plan of his to everyone. Our hero told them his plan was based on information that he got from a reliable source. He gave everyone a serious look and told them that apparently in the mine it seems a rockworm had built a den. An obvious shocked face was written on each member of the party. So, they gave Ed time to elaborate even further. Ed stated that a rock worm devours anything and everything made of silver, They also leave giant crevices in their wake when they feed, which can result in large cave-ins. In his first life, the worm would cause massive destruction in the mine that would cause a massacre of the village. And when they arrived, everything was already late. The mine has turned into a ruin. So, this time he wanted to make a change. Alexis stated that assuming his assumption was right, why didn't he notify the authorities? Because that would be more convenient for them. Ed told him that although that was possible, he wanted to kill silver-eating rockworms by themselves. The party was shocked. They recognized how serious Ed was about overcoming the quest. It came up to Alexis that the treasure that Ed was speaking of was a mithril. On the other hand, the two were confused. They didn't have any idea if mithril and silver were somehow related. Alexis explained that when silver got exposed to strong magic over an extended period, it would turn into a mithril. After that, they proceeded to the business. Alexis asked Ed if he planned to subjugate the worm to acquire the mithril. But the question is how to execute it. Ed was confident of himself. He told them that there was only one thing to do with it, and that was to let him prepare the best possible weapon for the hero's party. Meanwhile, inside the mine, the foreman was shouting at his workers, asking why they left the mine, and commanded them to go back immediately. One of the workers told the foreman that the hero asked them to evacuate from the mine, because they would need to search the mine, while trespassing is forbidden until further notice. Now back to our heroes. Gonzo asked whether Ed's informant was telling the truth because it seemed too quiet for a rockworm to be roaming the mine. Tiana asked why they had to mine the mithril by themselves when buying a mithril was way less hassle. Ed stated that a mithril collected from a rockworm was better. Alexis also added that when a worm consumed silver, it would undergo an impeccable refining process. Therefore, a mithril that came from a rockworm would be in its purest form, which they could use to create exceedingly high-quality weapons. As they got deeper into the mine, Alexis asked if they were heading in the right direction. Ed answered confidently that they were, and everything was going smoothly. After some time, the party encountered a dead end, but it turned out that they went to the right place. You see, the rockworm was hiding on the other side of the wall. This fired up Gonzo because finally, he could show off his muscle by digging through the wall, but Ed stopped him, commenting that digging won't be needed. Our hero approached the wall and used his circular reflection to start kicking the wall repeatedly. Everyone was worried for Ed because he might get injured if kept on. But thanks to the skill, it allowed him to do it safely because the skill can absorb any shockwave. Suddenly, the ground started shaking as Ed expected. Not long after that, the rock worm popped up and ambushed them. Fortunately, Gonzo was there to protect everyone. Thanks to Gonzo's help, it allowed Ed and Alexis to have an opportunity to strike the beast. Alexis tried to cut the beast in half, but unlucky for him, the monster was invincible against physical attacks. So, Tiana stepped in, and she started casting Volcanic Lance, a fire spell that was as hot as lava. The spell was very effective. It immobilizes the monster momentarily, which allowed our hero to enter inside the monster's mouth. Everyone was shocked when they saw Ed decided to enter the beast's stomach. But that was exactly our hero's plan. He took advantage of the opportunity to slice the monster's organs. Thanks to that, they managed to take down the beast unscathed. Gonzo and Alexis were impressed by our hero. On the other hand, Tiana rushes toward our hero. She is so worried that something bad might have happened to him. She yelled at him and asked him why did he do something like that, as it was too reckless that it might have ended up in him losing his life. But Ed assured her that everything was fine, because as she could see, he didn't have any bruises or scratches. But seeing Tiana cry, he apologizes for the stunt that he did. He then got reminded of the first time they faced the rockworm, because just like before, she also got worried about him. Our hero couldn't stop but smiled genuinely towards her because Tiana was Tiana no matter the timeline. Now that everything was sorted out, Ed showed everyone the mithril that he managed to loot inside the rockworm. Everyone was shocked at how beautiful the mithril was, but it's not the case for Gonzo because he was disappointed that the mithril was too small for such a huge monster. But Alexis stated that it was plenty enough because for a pure mithril a chunk like that was already huge. Curiosity hits Gonzo and Tiana, so they ask Alexis how much the mithril could be worth. Alexis stated that with that mithril they could probably afford a whole castle, which shocked both of them. But the plan was to use the mithril for creating weapons, so Alexis asked if he knew a reliable blacksmith who could craft the finest weapon. Ed just scratches his face and states that he was planning to craft the weapon by himself, saying he's a decent blacksmith. Hearing that leaves Alexis in utter shock. Our heroes went to the local blacksmith to gain access to the tools that he would need to craft the weapons. Before Ed started working, Alexis warned him that if he approached the craftsmanship half-heartedly, he should be prepared for punishment. The party then left our hero alone so they could let him work in peace. Alexis noticed that Tiana was having a big smile while she stared at Ed. He remarked to her that she must have taken an interest in him. But Tia dodged the question. He sarcastically told Alexis that she didn't know what he was talking about. Alexis and Gonzo went to a local pub to have a toast to their victory. Inside the pub, Gonzo told Alexis that he wasn't really in the right position to ask Tiana that kind of question. Because he noticed that the person who grew fond of Ed the most was him. Knowing Alexis's personality, he wasn't the kind of person who would trust anyone's statement, yet it seemed that he quickly believed Ed that there was a rockworm in the tunnel. Alexis replied that it was because he found it impressive that Ed wasn't only on par with him when it came to hand-to-hand combat, but he was also an invaluable wellspring of information. Meanwhile, Ed asks the persistent Tiana why would she watch a blacksmithing process when it's boring. Tiana smirked and told him that she wasn't there to watch blacksmithing but rather she was there because he was the one who was forging. Tiana gave a childlike smile and told our hero that she felt like he could do anything. His mood got sour when he remembered the tragic event that happened to him in the past. He stated that he wasn't like that at all because back then he let the most precious thing slip out of his hand. He was ashamed because it happened time and time again. But now he has a second chance, he's going to make sure that things would end differently. He would make something that deserved to be called a happy ending. Elsewhere, a man named Cyan was observing the blacksmith. His minion, which was a floating eye, told him that the hero and his party had managed to acquire a mithril after defeating the rockworm. After the man heard that information, he whispered that it was time for him to report it to the demon lord. After hours of forging, our hero finally proceeded to the cooling phase and he realized that the treasures he kept for the past 100 years had disappeared because he just went back in time. Regardless, he still has the compass weapon to search for the item. While our hero was using his compass, Cyan was watching his every movement. He told his minion that the intel he received that Ed should be a porter, but he was confused as to why he was capable of crafting a weapon. Cyan still hasn't gotten used to using his human form. He stated that it frustrates him that he couldn't change his face and body. Cyan then used his shape shifted into a lizard so he could gather more intel that he could report to the demon lord. After 6 days, our hero had finally finished his craft. Gonzo was shocked that he managed to do it for just 6 days. Ed replied that it was all because he didn't stop forging unless he needed to eat or sleep. Our hero boasted of the weapons he crafted to Tiana, Gonzo, and Alexis. Meanwhile, Cyan was still observing them from far away. While he watches them, Ed gives him a frightening stare. He was shocked to know that Ed was able to spot him, so he hid on a post and used his shape-shifting spell to report it to the demon lord immediately. He couldn't stop thinking about how he was able to be noticed by our hero. Because even the hero, Alexis, couldn't sense him. Just when he thought he was safe, a magical crystal pierced him. Ed approached him and told him that he was looking forward to meeting him. Cyan was shocked when our hero managed to know his name. Ed mocked him. He stated that he got a little ahead of himself, that's why he managed to gain his namesake was sweating profusely, and he tried to come up with a reason for Ed to pardon him. But then Gonzo and Tiana arrived on the scene. They asked him how things were going. He was shocked when he realized that he had been baited. So, Cyan's shape shifted back to human form, and stated that he wasn't an enemy. He was just an envoy of the Demon King. Because the Demon King wishes to make a peace treaty. Ed just menacingly smiles at him. He knew that everything was bullshit. He then told him that he shouldn't worry because the hero won't be coming. That hurt his ego, so he shape-shifted into a giant spider to face our hero in the two. He gave his strongest blow to the party, but Gonzo had easily blocked it. He thought that it was only a fluke, so he did it for the second time, but the outcome was still the same. It turns out that Alexis was watching them from the sideline. Alexis was baffled by how impressive Ed was. He couldn't believe that Ed had managed to know that someone was spying on them. In just a single punch from Gonzo, the giant spider's arm got amputated. Gonzo was so happy with the weapon he received because, with it, his muscle had achieved the point of explosion. Ed was flattered by his compliment. He was glad at the fact that they were satisfied with his craftsmanship. Cyan tried to escape by transforming into a rockworm and digging a tunnel to the ground. Too bad for him though, Tiana was there to stop him. Our hero slowly walks toward the pitiful Cyan. He told him that he knew exactly what was going to happen next. Ed uses his silver-winged sword technique to settle everything once and for all. And with that, the fight concluded with our heroes being victorious. Gonzo and Tiana immediately went to his aid to ask him if everything was over. Just by seeing the state of Cyan, they concluded that he was already dead. Alexis noticed that Ed had cut him too well because the impact of the cut was barely visible and the surface was frightening smooth. Ed tried to act dumb and told him that he still had a long way to go. But Alexis was not a fool. He knew that Ed was the real deal because there wasn't a single craftsman who could do something like that. So, Alexis stared at the hero intensely and bluntly asked him his true identity and what the hell was he hiding. Ed stuttered as he tried to dodge the question. But everything was already too late for him to come up with a reason because he went overboard in slaying Cyan. Ed's sword did not escape Alexis's eyes. He told Ed that although the appearance of the sword is deceptive, it seemed to be much more than a simple mithril. Ed admits that it wasn't an ordinary sword indeed. The mithril that he used formed wings on one side, shaping the other side into an incredibly thin and sharp blade, and by its 12th wing, the blade reached its sharpest point. Alexis did not get the answer he expected, so he tried to rephrase the question. He asked him what height he aimed to achieve as a blacksmith. Ed was dumbfounded because almost accidentally outed himself. He stated that his dream was to make a sword that could cut through everything. But Alexis knew he could already make that kind of sword because he once said that the 12-winged sword was just an experiment. Therefore, he was already capable of doing something more amazing. So, he asked him what was stopping him. Ed stated that it was due to a lack of materials. Because most of the things that he would need came from other worlds. Now that Alexis had his answer, they decided to clean up the mess that Cyan caused. Ed was about to help with the cleanup, but Alexis stopped him. Instead, he commanded him to have a private discussion with him. Later, everyone in the village was impressed by Tiana's ability to quickly clean up the rabbles. The villagers complimented her so much to the point that they even called her a goddess. But Tiana stated that although he appreciated the compliments, they just did what needed to be done. Now back to our hero, he couldn't stop sweating because his cover might be about to be blown up. Because all of his effort on acting would be turned into naught if he couldn't answer his questions properly. Though he was shaking, he tried his best to ask Alexis about his business with him. Ed told him that the reason he brought him with him was because he wanted to show him something. Alexis showed him the holy sword, a sword that was capable of cutting any obstacle. Alexis asked Ed if he could draw the holy sword. Ed was thrilled because it would be his first time touching the holy sword. But his eyes widened when he managed to get a hold of the sword. Alexis noticed that, so he asked him about his opinions. Ed told him that the quality as he expected, was truly an impressive blade. However, something was off. So, Alexis told him to give his honest opinion on the sword. He asked him if the sword deserved to be called an incredible sword. Ed answered him and said that the sword was indeed a legendary blade, made from a variety of metals and forged with top-notch techniques. However, its quality wasn't sufficient enough to be called the holy sword. As Alexis expected, he knew that Ed would be able to deduce that the sword was just an imitation version of the real holy sword. Now that everything was already revealed, our hero asked where they could find the real holy sword. Alexis couldn't answer his question because he didn't have any idea. For quite some time now, the kingdom had already dispatched survey teams to all corners of the world to search for the real one, but they haven't received any reports about its discovery. Alexis was worried that if ever the Demon Lord were to discover that the holy sword was a fake, then the Demon Lord would spare no expense to find it first, and if they were to find it, humanity would surely lose its chance at victory. That's why Alexis had been trying to deceive everyone with his swordsmanship, but he could sense that the sword was near its limit. That's why he was searching for a blacksmith who could craft a sword with the same caliber. He deeply looked in our hero's eye and asked him if he could be that blacksmith. Ed thought about it. Although he was confident that he could craft a sword that had the same caliber as the imitation, it would be still impossible for him to create the real holy sword. Just when he was about to reject him, Alexis bowed down and begged him to fulfill his wish. In addition, Alexis stated that he was willing to give anything he wanted as long as he helped him. Ed was feeling pressured. He wanted to stop Alexis from bowing, but he was adamant, because, with our hero's help, he could keep on being a hero and save humanity. When our hero used his telekinesis skill on Alexis, he was able to understand the pressure that society placed on him because of his duty as the hero. He was able to empathize with him because of that. But our hero knew he couldn't craft his holy sword, so he used his Akashic compass to locate the real holy sword. In an instant, Ed had managed to gain information on where they could find the holy sword. But our hero's service was not for free. He proposed that the price for him to help was to defeat the demon lord and bring peace to the help. The look of relief was noticeably observable in Alexis's eyes. He promised that he would fulfill his request. Alexis then said that as the person he bowed his head to, he had no intention of treating him as a simple luggage porter anymore. And thus, he may call him by his first name. Just like Gonzo and Tiana. Ed smiled and shook his hand, and with that, our hero had finally become a true equal of the hero's party. In our hero's pursuit of power, he forgot an integral part of life, and that is human connection. He lost people he could trust, but fortunately for him, he gained a one-time ability to go back in time. But in real life, there's no rewind. So, we should make the best of our life. We shouldn't forget those people who stayed no matter how hard life was. What do you think happened next? Would our heroes be able to obtain the holy sword, or rather where the Demon King would take over the world? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.